This is the Moonlight Graham Show, a freewheeling conversation with the role players, the underdogs, and guys with flat-out great stories in sports.
Hello and welcome back to the Moonlight Graham Show, where we celebrate the role players and the underdogs in sports. And our Moonlighter for today is a guy that I'm really glad I met and had a really great time talking to, because he might be one of the nicest guys I've ever encountered here on the podcast in 277 episodes now. He's a guy that, growing up, he was one of the top junior golfers in the country. He went on to play college golf at Iowa State University in the Big 12, where he was an all Big 12 golfer, beating the likes of Jordan Spieth and Dylan Fratelli and Ricky Fowler and Abraham Ancer and a lot of the studs that came out of the Big 12. After Iowa State, where he was named Male Athlete of the Year in 2012, he went to professional golf, where he played mostly on the Canadian Tour, won on the Canadian Tour, had a really good run there, played on the Korn Ferry Tour, was doing really well, and then gave it all up to be a husband and to be a father and to raise his family back here in Des Moines, Iowa, where he is from. His name is Nate McCoy. And if the McCoy name sounds familiar to you, it's because Nate's dad, Mike McCoy, is one of the top amateur golfers in the world and has been for, much of the last 30 years now. Mike McCoy is actually the captain of the U.S. Walker Cup team right now, which is essentially the Ryder Cup for amateurs. So Mike McCoy, a name brand in golf. His son, Nate, is who we have on the pod today. And Nate is one of those guys that has been inside of golf circles, like the tightest of golf circles for really his whole life, starting because of his dad, right? He caddied for his dad at the Masters. He's really had the chance to meet some of the best golf influencers, golf players, golf media people over the course of his life, but had his own great golf career as well, and is kind of building his own golf career right now. And so he's been in this golf inner circle, and you kind of would expect a little bit of ego to come with that. But when you talk to Nate, you get absolutely zero ego. You get great perspective. And truly, like I said, maybe one of the nicest guys that I've ever met here on the podcast. And I really enjoyed chatting with him, and I think you will too. And so without further ado, here is my conversation with Moonlighter Nate McCoy. Moonlighters, are you or someone you know moving down to Kansas City? Well, if you are, the one realtor that we trust and yet you need to be calling is the great Brian Sandvig. As you well know, Brian Sandvig is our producer here on the podcast, and there is not a better residential real estate advisor down in the Kansas City marketplace than Brian Sandvig. Call Brian Sandvig, shoot him a text. Hey, DM us on social media. We'll get you connected with Brian if you can't find him on all the socials, but he is there and he is active, and he is your Kansas City realtor, so give him a call. All right, Nate McCoy. We haven't had a golfer on the podcast that hasn't been named Sam Moret in quite a while. So this is a special podcast episode. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. This is pretty cool to be able to do this with you guys, and yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes, and hopefully I'll come up with some okay stories for you.
So Nate, you won the Iowa State Male Athlete of the Year in 2012 over Royce White and Steele Jantz, Cyclone legend Steele Jantz. Yeah. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I was pretty shocked when I found that out, because Royce White was the first guy that I was thinking of when I heard that I got it, and I was like, well, what about Royce? And yeah, it was unbelievable to hear that and to kind of be honored with that, because it, I wasn't expecting it, and I don't think probably many others were as well, but it was a lot of people were probably very oblivious to what we did at Iowa State in golf, and so obviously the high profile sports are kind of what everybody tends to watch, and so it was definitely a highlight of my career, though.
Yeah, there's not many male sports at Iowa State anymore. I mean, there's football, there's basketball, there's wrestling, and then there's golf and track and field and cross country.
Yep.
Is golf like a fully funded sport? Like, were you on a full ride scholarship while you were there? Are most guys on full rides?
I think when I was there was 4.5 scholarships, and I think this is still the case. And at that level, is there'd be 4.5 scholarships that would be spaced out for basically the whole team to kind of distribute. I know women maybe have an extra scholarship or two. So, so we were fully funded. It was we had 4.5 scholarships to kind of spread around, and I, kind of being an in-state kid, you can kind of
they work the numbers for you.
Yeah, you work the numbers a little bit.
Pay as much.
Yeah. So, there's times where you're getting more than other years, but towards the end I was obviously I'd kind of earned my scholarship, I guess you'd say. So
well, I'd say so if you were the athlete of the year, right?
Yeah. No, I think my last 2 years I kind of something clicked for me, and things definitely worked out well. Still would love to go back and use what I have now and the knowledge I have and the skills I've picked up now and go back. I mean, it'd be a blast to go back now, but
you sound like every old athlete right now.
Yeah. Starting out, I was like I had no clue what I was doing. I remember my first college tournament I got into. I missed my first one as a freshman. I had a good friend, a teammate, kind of reach out to me, and really the way I looking back and even at that time, I really could tell that the reason why I missed it and didn't qualify it was really because I felt like I had to play perfect golf. I felt like going in to qualifying, I was expected to be this completely different player than I was in high school. Like I had to do everything perfect. I had to drive it further. I had to, make every 5-footer. I had to just be perfect, and that kind of froze. Kind of free. It kind of, I don't know, caused me to freeze up a little bit and kind of lose a lot of my ability to score. And I had a friend reach out to me, and he basically just said, "Hey, just do what you did to get here. Like that was enough. And that's all you have to do is just play like you played, when you were in high school." And obviously I wanted to play better than that, but that kind of helped me realize okay, I don't have to necessarily play perfect. And so I got into my first event, which was at Michigan, and it was right across the street from the stadium, the football stadium. So it's a pretty cool setting. And I remember I shot a 75 in my first round, and I thought that was pretty good because, the course felt tough, and I thought I had played a good round. And my coach said, I said, "Well, where do I stand? Am I doing okay?" And he's like, "Oh, you're 55th right now." And he's like, "Yeah, 75s don't cut it in college." And I'm like, "All right, that makes sense." And so that was kind of where I started. I mean, that was my freshman year. You just kind of, you're really just trying to get your feet wet and trying to figure out where you're at.
I was looking back at the Big 12 tournament standings from your senior year, 2012, and obviously there's some really good college golf, played on the East Coast, played in the SEC, played in the ACC. But the Big 12's no slouch in golf either, especially with Oklahoma State, all the guys that have come out of there. And then your year, it was like Dylan Fratelli, Jordan Spieth out of Texas, Abraham Answer at Oklahoma. Yep. I mean, there was just a ton of names the more you look through that list. And then Nate McCoy right in the mix, all Big 12, right along with them. What was it like playing with all those guys that I'm sure you knew, hey, a lot of these guys are going to be on the tour here real quick?
Yeah. You knew pretty quickly who the best guys were, and I think the more that I was exposed to those players, whether it was playing summer amateur golf or playing in college against these guys, like the more I was exposed to those guys, the more I realized that I wasn't much different. I was the same and had the same ability, and I did everything the same way they were doing it, and it kind of helped me believe a little bit that I could actually contend with those guys and match up and beat them if I, on certain days. And so, that was something I didn't necessarily have when I started college. I mean, I remember my freshman year, again, going back to freshman year, I mean, I saw, I think it was Cal or UCLA, or it was one of those teams. And you're seeing their bags for the first time and you're like stunned. You're like, wow, like this is pretty cool. And I remember I asked my coach, kind of as a joke, but I was like, oh, I should, I kind of want to go over there and get their autograph, get those guys' autographs. And of course, they didn't appreciate that. They thought, they want to see you with some more intensity, and you want to go out there and beat those guys.
You can't be fanboying around the competition here, Nate.
Yeah, and I remember even going to Big 12s my freshman year, seeing the guys from Oklahoma State, the guys that I used to have their pictures on my computer screensaver. Like I was a huge Oklahoma State golf fan because they had always been, this unbelievable team.
In your freshman year, who was it? Was that like Fowler or was he?
Yeah, Fowler was there. Peter Uline. Let's see who else. I think Morgan Hoffman was there. There was a couple other guys. Trent Leon, who him and his brother both were star players at Oklahoma State, and they're both from Dallas, and just they all carry themselves with some confidence. Yeah. And then it's us. We're showing up and and just we just kind of looked like scrubs compared to some of these guys, but it was good. It kind of opened me up to seeing some of the best players in the world. And then, it takes a little time. It took me a couple of years to actually even get any confidence playing against those guys, because I just needed to be exposed to them for a little bit to realize that I was kind of the guy that needed to have it happen. Like, I had to see it happen. I had to go out and actually beat somebody for me to actually believe I could beat them, versus, everybody would say, you just believe in yourself, just believe, and it's going to happen. And it's like, well, I have to actually do it to believe it. So when it actually started happening, then it kind of clicked like pretty quickly that I could do it.
Mm-hmm. When you were playing in college, you said you knew who the best guys were. So in college, who were the best guys?
Like you kind of mentioned some of them. Spieth was there. Justin Thomas was there when I was a senior. Koepka was there. Alabama had a lot of good players. Corey Whitsitt, who didn't necessarily make it, was one of the best, guys you could go up against. Left-handed player from Alabama. All the guys from Texas. You got all the guys from Oklahoma State. Brandon Hagge was pretty good from Cal. I mean, Homa was there. All the guys that you basically see on tour right now, those guys were the guys I was playing against. So it's pretty cool.
Were there any guys, though, that you thought were the best that have just man, I can't believe that guy didn't make it?
Yeah, there definitely are. Thinking about it now, it's tough to pinpoint a certain player or two, but yeah, there are some guys.
And sometimes that question's almost a little bit naive, because it's so hard to make it.
Yeah.
And you probably know this better than anybody, but a lot of times I hear this in baseball a lot. Like, some guy out of Dowling Catholic or wherever will get drafted in the 8th round. And then if you don't follow baseball, you're like, whatever happened to that guy? I thought he was going to be some big-time player. And just as a baseball guy, you're like, well, nobody makes it. Almost no. It's a miracle if anybody makes it. And the major leagues are kind of similar to the PGA Tour in that regard, where it's like the minor leagues are so tough. It's even the guys on the bottom half of the tour are year in and year out just trying to get by, or trying to get their card for another year, or try to save it. And we've had Troy Merritt here on the podcast a couple of times, right? And Troy Merritt's an Iowa-born guy, a guy I follow every week. And he's finally kind of found a nice little groove in his career. But for really 5 years, it was like year-to-year basis, will he have his card next year?
Yeah. No, I think you definitely have it figured out. I mean, it's baseball and golf for getting to that top tier is very difficult. And I mean, the percentage of guys that make it, guys that graduate and turn pro, I mean, the guys that make it, it's kind of, I mean, it's very low.
It's like nobody.
It's like, yeah. And considering how many new guys actually get out there every year, it's even, I mean, it's a very small percentage. And you think about it, when I was out there, you're getting to the point where you can beat everybody, or you can feel like you can beat everybody that you're playing with in college. Like, you know who's good, and you know who you can beat, and you know you can compete. Well, then you get out to play pro golf, and you just now expose yourself to like 20 years of all the best players that ever came out of college, for 20 years. And you find out there, I mean, there's guys that you never have heard of before that are coming out of the woodwork that are amazing players. I mean, just guys that know how to play the game. They know how to get the ball in the hole. They don't necessarily have this, beautiful swing or anything that would awe you, but they know how to shoot it. They can go out every day and shoot 66, 67, and it's like, man, I can't believe this guy's not out there either. But it's like, it's a different world, and it makes you makes you get better really quick because you have to.
You made a comment there that I've heard a lot of good golfers make, and I don't know if you're being serious about it or if it's just something that people say, but you say they know how to get the ball in the hole.
Yeah.
Like that just sounds like the dumbest comment I've ever heard. It's like, what do you mean by get the ball in the hole?
Yeah, I think it's a confidence knowing that if you're out of play, that you're still in the game. If you're out of play, you still have you have the belief, and you know that you're going to be able to get the ball in the hole at least with par or even a bogey. But
they can take more chances because they know they can.
Yeah, it's just kind of like they figured out how just to manage themselves so well that they're not if they're having a day where they're just not driving it well, it's not a big deal to them. Some guys would just, as soon as they hit the first two drives, a mile right into the trees, they've basically given up. These guys are just like, well, whatever, it's just a shot. Like, and then they recover, and they get it to a wedge distance that they can hit it on the green and close to the hole, and then they make par, and you're like, how the heck did this guy just make par? And that's kind of the way that pro golf really is good about teaching. I mean, anybody who turns pro, I tell a lot of guys, I'm like, if you're going to turn pro, like, I know for a fact you're going to get better because you just learn how to manage your game better because you have to, just by necessity, or else you just won't last. And so, but yeah, those guys, you learn very quickly just how to just manage yourself.
After Iowa State, you turned pro.
Yep.
What was the next step? Like, once you turn pro, it's not like there's this big press conference or anything. Like, what happens when you turn pro, and then what's the next step to get into a tournament and to start your pro career?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. It's funny. Yeah, you basically just enter a tournament, and that kind of, at the time, that kind of forfeited your amateur status.
So did you enter like the Waterloo Open?
So what I did, this is kind of an interesting way to do it, but I was at Iowa State at the time, and I was in my senior season. I just qualified for regionals, and I think I had already signed up for Canadian Tour Q School at that point. And because I had to go to Q School, I could go to Q School, I guess, and if I made it, I could still keep my amateur status until I entered my first Canadian Tour event. And so I was like, and it was going to be after nationals, after I graduated. So it kind of worked out well, but I ended up going, I think, to Q School between regionals and nationals, I believe, or it was something like that. And graduation was in there. I also was like a month out from getting married, so like there was a lot of stuff like going on in that like month and a half. But I remember I qualified. I finished like 4th or 5th in the Q School. I mean, I was thinking, oh geez, like here we go, like and then I went to nationals, and I finished like 29th or 27th or something like that at Riviera. So like, things were good, and right after that, I was like, all right, it's time to go. And so my wife and I, at the time, she was my fiance, we went to my first Canadian Tour event, which actually, because I wasn't officially a pro at that point, I don't think I could have entered myself at that time, or else I would have become a pro. It was kind of there was a lot of weird things going on, and this is obviously back in 2012, so some of my memories kind of leaving me a little bit. But I remember I had to actually get a sponsor's exemption to even get into that first event, even though I was a fully qualified player because of my status as an amateur at the time. So I get there, and then I turn pro when I'm there, and before I actually teed off, and so I was ready to go. I made the cut. I don't think I made more than $1,000 that week, and obviously going out to Victoria, BC, it's kind of like a vacation destination. It's a little more expensive, and we were staying in this place called Paul's Motor Inn. It was a little. I mean, it's just like like what you'd expect.
Yeah. Paul's Motor Inn.
Paul's Motor Inn.
You know exactly what it is.
Yeah, I don't have to tell you. So, but yeah, and we basically took a shuttle every day. We didn't even get a rental car, and I don't think I even could have at the time, being 21.
Because you just have no money.
Yeah, I was 21 years old. Yeah, no money. Like, now I will say I had some very, very close family friends. One of them who I just saw the other day down in Indianola, who kind of helped me out get started. He got me set up with an LLC at People's Bank down in Indianola, and so I banked at People's Bank, and those guys I will say some really nice things about them, but I had some stories where I was kind of holding off to paying for Q school. This is like 2 or 3 years down the road, and I was going to pay, it was like $4,500 or $5,000 to pay for Q school. And I, as a guy that doesn't have a lot of money, mini tour pro, I was kind of waiting until the last minute to actually pay for it. Well, then I tried to pay for it on the deadline day, and I found out my card wouldn't go that high. And so I had to contact the bank. Well, they said, hey, it's going to take like 4 or 5 days to get this to change over. And I said, well, I kind of told them my situation. I said, I got to get this in now, or else, I'm not going to be able to do it. And, lady's like, hold on, I'll take care of it. She did it, took care of it for me, got it raised, and I signed up with an hour to spare, and I sent her flowers that next week and just
nice.
said thank you, so I have a lot of good things to say about People's Bank in Indianola and Carlisle. So
who hated minor league golf more, you or your wife?
I don't know. My wife probably. I loved it at the time.
Oh, really?
But spending your summers in Canada, and I thought it was the greatest thing ever. It's a beautiful country. I thought it was a blast just getting in a car, driving 15 hours across the country, going from Saskatoon to Winnipeg, and then Winnipeg to Thunder Bay, and then you're going home for a week, and then you go back up to Ottawa and play in Kingston. You kind of just travel across the country, and I thought it was great. Now my wife probably would say otherwise. It was she gave up her whole summer basically to do that, and she caddied for me for 4 seasons, and I definitely think she hated it because now I cannot literally get her on the golf course at all. So I think she really was 100% committed, but it was a lot for her. And
how was your wife on the bag?
Very good, actually. Surprisingly, she was a soccer player, so she played at Iowa State and was I guess they call him the goalkeeper. And I only saw her play one game. She actually got injured pretty bad her senior year. Blew out every ligament in her knee except for her ACL. That was the only thing that stayed. So
that must have been a crazy injury.
Yeah, it was pretty bad, and I think she still has issues from it. But she was really good at caddying. She didn't read putts and stuff. I was trying to teach her. I'm like, okay, if you dump a bucket of water on the green, which way is the water going to flow? Or if you had a soccer ball and you rolled it, she could see that. She could see a soccer ball rolling on the green and actually seeing it break. But when you tell her, when you have a little golf ball and you're like, okay, where's this going to go? She couldn't see it. So she did a really good job. She'd pack my snacks. She'd make sure my water was always full. She really knew the right thing to say pretty much 95% of the time. And
was there ever a time when you guys were bickering at home and then you get onto the golf course and all of a sudden some of that stuff comes back out?
Oh, for sure. For sure. There was a couple of times where she basically stopped. She dropped the bag, stopped, and was like, I'm done. And she would almost she was taking literally taking the bib off, and I'm like, no, I'm sorry. It was me.
It's always our fault.
So, yeah. So if I remember, we'd never fought before, and we were married at this point. So even everything up to this point was great. And for second tournament, so we were in Edmonton. So we literally drove. We got married. So this was a week after we got married, or actually 4 or 5 days after we got married, so we got married. We drove to Minot, North Dakota that next night. That's our first night as a married couple. Minot, North Dakota. Got in the car again, drove all the way to Edmonton, Alberta, and stayed with the host family. And so that was our first 2 days being married. And
so they have host families for people at these tournaments.
They did, which helped a ton because at the time the way the exchange rate and everything was, it would have been. And the hotels were much more expensive up there, it seemed like, at the time. And so, I stayed with host families about, I bet 8 out of 10 times. And it was great. So in this family, we still talk to a lot of them, the great people. And, Canadians, everybody says Canadians are nice. It's true. They're the nicest people in the world. And
biggest and smallest pro check that you've ever had?
On paper, it said $27,000 from my win in Canada. And I think after getting taxed in the United States and Canada, it was it was much less. But that was my biggest. And my smallest, you're probably less than $100.
No.
But this would have been probably some smaller state, a little state
Right.
event. One day, fun event. Maybe it was an appearance fee of $100. That could have been your smallest. But
So you would get appearance fees as well?
it depended on where you were. So in Canada, you would get even some money just to do a clinic at times, which I always did. Like I loved doing stuff for kids or for ladies or whoever it was. I'd volunteered knowing that, hey, you get $100, $200, but I also enjoyed it. In Iowa, you maybe get $100 to go play a pro-am here or there, and that really actually it means a lot. If you're just spending one day, I mean, $100.
Well, yeah, if you're a young
you're getting to play golf,
and you got nothing else to do.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
How far do you hit it?
Not very far, actually.
So, I guess to get into this question, I know a handful of guys that know you,
Yep.
a handful of guys that have played with you. I've asked every one of them this question, and I've gotten 5 different responses.
Okay.
And I think it says more about the people I'm asking the question to
Yeah.
than about how far you actually hit it.
Okay.
So, Nate McCoy, how far do you hit it?
I'd say it always depends on conditions and temperature and everything, but I'm guessing I don't carry it more than 270. Realistically, I mean,
Yeah.
and probably hitting at 285. Now obviously if it's firm, it's hot. You can, and you're hitting it a little harder. You can get it a little further out there.
Right.
But I can get it close to 300, I'm sure. But I'm not a long guy by pro standards, definitely, but not by the college kids today. Speed and power are completely different topic now a different I guess
Emphasis
now.
Yeah.
I mean, we were just trying to, when I was in school, a lot of it was like we were still trying to hit it straight, and we were trying to be very accurate and be good with the wedges. And I mean, now it's just like we just hit it hard, and I think there's probably some data to back up why that is now. But personally, knowing I'm never going to hit it 320, I'm just going to try to be really good with the wedges and try to be pretty accurate off the tee.
Yeah. When you mentioned early on that you had to kind of stay within yourself when you were getting your college career going off, was that a lot of it? It's like you would see other guys that are 6'4", thoroughbreds, piping at 315. It's like, oh, great. Now I've got to actually try to hit it 295, 300, but then it gets you off of your game.
Exactly. And that's kind of what I felt just going into college. All the guys on my team hit it past me, and they all had certain skills that maybe I would say were better. Length being, the main one that kind of stood out to me. But yeah, it took me a little while to get. I mean, I still struggle with it now, knowing that okay, maybe there's extra distance out there, but I also don't necessarily. Yeah, I think as a player, I've just kind of learned that doesn't necessarily always directly relate to shooting lower scores, and as much as I'd love to hit it longer, I know that if I do, I'm also going to maybe hit it a little further offline too, and I don't like giving that up sometimes.
Right. So your old man's quite the player.
Yeah.
And he's always been a good player. What was it like growing up with your dad always being good and still being good today?
Yeah, it's having him as somebody to emulate was pretty good. I remember going to Wakanda with him as a kid, and he'd have me run up on the green. It'd be like at twilight. Nobody's out there, and he's just pitching the ball. He's got 10 balls, and he's just pitching them to the hole. And then my job would be to throw it back to him. And so I'm seeing how the ball's landing, reacting. I'm watching just him practice. I'm just watching him practice, and he wasn't the type of dad that was gonna like spend hours just watching me hit balls. Like he didn't necessarily. He's not like those dads that just completely drops everything he's doing and just pours himself into me or his other.
He's kind of expecting you to learn from him a little bit.
Yeah, and so I'm just watching him, and I'm hanging out with him, and if he's worried about his game. I mean, he wants to be great, and he's doing what he wants to do to contend and win tournaments. And so I had to kind of find it on my own, but I always had him there making sure that I wasn't messing around. He was there to keep me doing the right things. It just wasn't. He wasn't necessarily, telling me how to do it. He was just, hey, this is what you're supposed to do, and showing me.
When was the first time you beat him?
I think it was either at Wakanda. I don't actually remember. It was probably when I was 10 or 12 or so, but I remember it was just 9 holes. And he did just very casually just said, well, I think you beat me. That's about all he said. And then that was it.
He didn't talk to you for a week.
No. Yeah. No, he was very casual about it. It wasn't like a big deal. We didn't make a big deal out of it. It was just kind of like, yeah, I think you might have beat me today. And I was like, oh, okay. And that was it. But in my head, it was like, okay, I'm getting better. I'm getting a little better. And it meant maybe a little bit more to me. And maybe it did to him too. He just didn't say it.
When's the last time he beat you then?
Oh, probably not that long ago. We played a tournament in Florida over winter break and the practice round day. So he'd been down playing a lot of golf, and I just came down for winter, first round of the season basically. And I think I actually played okay, but I think he probably got me that day. But he kind of lives down there now and gets to play as much as he wants. So
yeah.
So
and you've got the excuse like kids, winter, and all this other stuff.
But no, he still gets me. I mean, we have very competitive matches if we do get a play, and it's good. I like that he wants to still get better. Like he still believes there's much more in the tank, And he's in his. I mean, heck, he's 59 or 60, so he's up there, but he's good.
Are you going to be able to experience any of the Walker Cup? I know he's a Walker Cup captain, and that's a really cool. I mean, how cool is it that your dad's Walker Cup captain, Zach Johnson's Ryder Cup captain, 2 Iowans at the same time?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, working at the Iowa Golf Association now, I mean, that's kind of something that we've made kind of a big deal out of.
I'm trying to make a big deal out of the podcast.
Yeah,
we only have so much reach here, Nate.
Yeah, I know. No, it's very cool. I mean, I am going to experience it, so I'm going to go over the week before it starts, and then I'll play a little bit when I'm there, but it's going to be at St. Andrews September 2nd and 3rd, and yeah, it's been pretty cool. And I think he's... I know he's thrilled just to have that opportunity to coach the team. As he's played on the team. I think it was in 2015. They ended up losing that year. It was overseas, but just to be on the team, make the team, it's a big deal. It's not necessarily as intense as the Ryder Cup, where like if you lose, like they basically want to have like press conferences for like weeks about why in front
of somebody's head.
Yeah. Somebody's got to take the sword. But the amateur side of things on the Walker Cup, it's very much a. I mean, it's just a different feel. It's such a goodwill thing between both both countries. And
you wonder if now that there's a king instead of a queen, if Charles is going to be coming at this a little bit different than how the Queen was handling it in the years past, right?
Yeah. It actually wouldn't surprise me if he would come out, if you'd see him there. To tell you the truth, I think that. There is some history of golf in that family, the royal family.
Yeah, they own a bunch of the top courses.
Yeah, I think there's some connections. Yeah, for sure, and they might actually own it. I don't know 100%. You maybe know better, but I think that it wouldn't surprise me because I know that U.S. presidents, especially George Bush, who has a family connection. I think it was his grandfather maybe who maybe started it. So it's a really cool thing, and I'm hopeful that people will tune in to watch it.
So I'm a caddy, as you know. Yeah. You've caddied for your dad at the Masters.
Yeah.
Or the Masters Par 3.
Well, both.
So that's what my follow-up was going to be. In your golf profile, it said you caddied for your dad at the Masters Par 3. So I guess my question there was, did you get to hit a shot like most kids do?
We didn't, actually. The only shot I hit was when we were playing a practice round with Zach Johnson. We were on the 16th hole, which is the hole everybody, the practice round skips it across the water. And I think it was Sunday before the tournament week. So nobody's out there. And they did let me, Zach kind of edged my, kind of told my dad, he's like, let him hit a shot, and I wanted to hit it on 12, the par 3, and there was a chance, but my dad kind of looked back at me and kind of shook his head. He's like, nah, let's not do that. But then I get to 16 and Zach kind of says, yeah, hit a shot. And so I took a 5-iron out, I think I had, and put the ball in the downslope and skipped it across the water and got it over. So that was my only shot. But that was pretty cool. That was fun.
You caddied both in the par 3 and the actual tournament for your dad.
I did. My brother was actually supposed to do the par 3, but he ended up getting lost, and it was his first day there. And my brother, he kind of got lost on the property, and then he got his credential taken because it was a long story. It's probably longer than what have time for. But he ended up showing up eventually. They had him on the get guys on the radios looking for my brother, and my dad was waiting for him, and we had to go on this par 3 course, and my brother finally shows up, and at that point he didn't have his
The
jumpsuit
bibs.
on.
Yeah.
So at that point it was like, all right, I'm going to go and do it, and he walked along, and we had a good time.
How are you as a caddy?
I don't think I'm actually that good. Me and my dad, it's funny, when he caddies for me and when I caddy for him, I don't feel like we actually ever have a lot of success. And I don't know if it's because we're both so competitive that we both kind of wish we were in that person's shoes playing, and hitting the shots for the person, because we do have some differences in the way we play, and maybe think, and kind of what we're thinking about, why we're walking, and all that stuff. It's funny that you think we'd be very similar, but we're actually a little different in some regard. And so I don't know, it hasn't meshed well as player caddy relations, but I think we're probably going to continue to caddy for each other just because why not,
Yeah.
but I don't know. Some people just really do well together, and some just kind of struggle.
What makes a good caddy?
I think it's finding a person that can somehow get you to hit a lot of your just stock shots. Somehow find a way. And I had a guy, a real good caddy named Travis McAllister, caddied for me once at Q School, and he actually caddies for Maverick McNeely on tour. And so Travis
Stanford guy.
Yeah.
Do you know the Stanford head coach is a Fort Dodge guy?
I didn't. Is he really?
He's been on the podcast, Conrad Ray.
Okay. I've met Conrad. I didn't realize he was an Iowan, though. That's pretty neat.
He spent, I think, through grade school in Fort Dodge before he moved up to Minnesota.
Okay.
If you listen to the pod more often,
I
you learn these
know. Well, don't worry, I'll be listening to all of them after this. But Conrad, he's one of the best, obviously best in the business. I didn't know that, so that's pretty neat. But yeah, I think a good caddy, it's somebody that gets you to hit a lot of stock shots, and that's kind of what Travis did for me. And I felt like I never had played an easier round of golf than those rounds I played with him at Q School when I had him on the bag, and it didn't work out for him to do the next stage due to a kind of a family emergency, and totally understood. So, but I give him a ton of props. Like, he kind of taught me a lot just in that 1 week, and I don't know how he did it, but he got me to just hit a lot of just stock shots, and it was like the easiest golf I ever played. And I'm like, how the heck is this happening? And it was just the way he kind of handled things. He was very quiet, and he knew it. He just kind of knew what to say. He didn't get excited, didn't get down. It was just kind of, here's what we got, and this is what I think. This is the number I want you to hit it, and this gets kind of gets you here, and I just kind of did it. And so I'm still kind of scratching my head at how that worked out that week, because I would love to somehow find that again.
Yeah, find whatever, bottle up whatever you had there and bring it back.
Yeah.
What does a caddy need to avoid?
I think it's getting emotionally too excited, too into it. I think it does kind of. Now, there's times, obviously, it's nice to, when you're coming down the stretch and you're coming from behind, and it's nice to have somebody kind of there to kind of be like the Mick, in the back of your, that guy.
Right. If there's momentum,
you need
let's
it.
build, keep this going.
But there's times when, when you're down, you don't need somebody else kind of just making it worse. or if you're up, kind of almost trying to seal the deal before it's been completed. People are pretty good about knowing what to say, but it's, I tend to always if my wife wasn't on the bag, I would tend to find a high school kid, because generally they're going to be kind of afraid to talk, to you. This is when I was playing, pro golf, but I always felt more comfortable around a high school kid that I knew he wasn't going to try to tell me how to play, and I could then, kind of focus on myself, and I could then teach him maybe something too, and kind of get a friendship going. Sometimes when you get somebody who's older, maybe he's a member of the club who wants to caddy for you, then It's like, this is how they try to tell you how to play.
Right.
And I don't necessarily want that. It's like, because you, as a player, you want to have the confidence in yourself to know how to play and find it. You just need someone there to kind of be a nice person to talk to and enjoy the walk. That's what it's kind of about.
A good walk in the grass.
That's right.
On your PGA Canada profile, one of the statements was, if I was not playing professional golf, I would either be in the military or coaching golf.
Yeah.
You're no longer playing professional golf, and you're doing neither of those things.
Yeah.
What the heck, Nate?
It's funny. So the military was something I've always kind of thought I was going to do. I actually almost joined the Marines right out of high school at Dowling versus going to play college golf. I was kind of at that point where I wanted to take on that challenge, but also I really wanted to serve the country. I personally still feel like I haven't done anything for the country as a person, except try to be obviously a good citizen. But I feel
Pay
like
your taxes, be a good citizen.
Yeah. But I do want to be. I felt like it was really important to give back to the country, and don't necessarily feel like I've done that, but that was really important to me, and still is. And so service to the country is something I'm really passionate about. So when others do take that on, I'm very proud of what they're doing. Coaching wise, I think coaching would have been a thrill. There's nothing better than seeing other people find something that clicks for them, and then go off and become successful, and get some confidence in something, and just seeing confidence build up in a young person it's kind of a neat thing. And I think I would probably have been just as passionate about that as playing myself. But, it's I'm definitely still interested in coaching, but it's, the older I get and farther away from, their age, you get a little older and maybe you feel like maybe it's not the right thing at the time. But it's obviously something that I'd be passionate about, I think, just because I love kids and helping them out. So,
yeah. Everything I've read about you, it seems like the military is very consistent, and then your faith's very consistent. Yeah. And whether it's your pocket Bible or just making little comments, it's like, this guy's actually has his faith as a high priority in his life. How did that impact your career? Maybe bringing you back to Iowa, maybe getting out of professional golf, or does that all tie together?
Yeah, that's a good question. I had a good friend who I went to church with, a guy that, I don't know what his handicap is, but we'd play golf on some. He was a high handicap player, but the guy would always ask me some really good questions. And there was one day, I'm back. It's probably off season at this time. I'm kind of back home working on the game and stuff. But he kind of sat down with me at a restaurant, and he said, "Well, what do you want?" I was like, this is after maybe 4 or 5 years of playing golf, and I said, I think I really want to I want to play golf. Like I like competing. Like I love it. But I also want to have a family, and I want to have a house, and I want to have a white picket fence and a dog. I want that, as well. And I said, and I don't think I can have that if I'm playing professional golf. Like unless I'm on tour. And even at that point, I kind of told him, I said, even if I make it, which I was very close. I had Corn Ferry or Web.com status at and it was like I think it was my second to last year as a pro.
2015, I think.
Yeah, 15, and then 16. Without going into it, like kind of what happened, but going into 16, it's kind of like, geez, I was, I've kind of kept progressing, and I kind of accomplished my goal. I wanted to have Corn Ferry status after 3 years of being a pro, which I did. And then, I set another 3-year goal, and that was to win, again, or to go and win on the Corn Ferry Tour. But that question that he asked me kind of got in the way, kind of stayed with me a little bit. And I kept asking myself, what do I really want? And I kind of realized that, I really don't necessarily want this life. I didn't really want to have I wanted to have a family, but I knew it wasn't going to be possible for me to be a good father and do all that. And not to say that other guys can't do it better.
In the way that
I wanted to do it, and I loved I love Iowa, and I didn't want to have to, to do it right. Eventually I was probably going to have to go somewhere south, and there was just a lot of things going on, and I remember thinking like, geez, like even if I'd make it, and even if I'd make the tour and be traveling all over the world, like I don't think I'd be that happy. And so that was kind of what clicked for me. And like I said, like obviously for some guys it does work, and like for them it's the right decision. And for me, it just didn't seem like it was. And so I remember I was down in Florida, and my brother was down there with me, and he was, I think, at school at the time at Kaiser. He was playing golf at Kaiser, and I was playing some mini tour events just to kind of stay sharp. And I'd finished like third or fourth in my last two events, and so I was playing good, and I just, something hit me, and I was like, you know what, and like this is it. Like, I think I'm done. And I don't know why. It just kind of hit me. I was like, I was 5 weeks. I think I was away for like 5 weeks from home. Had a 1 year. Actually, I had a baby at home. It wasn't even 1 year old yet. And I said, I think I'm going to give my friend Chad Pitts a call. And Chad's my now boss, but he's at the time he was the executive director and still is the executive director of the Iowa Golf Association. And I called him up and I kind of asked him, I said, do you have any internships available or anything that I could do in the summer, and he did. And so I basically right there, I just kind of knew, like, I'm just going to give this a go. Yeah. And it was a quick, I didn't even call my wife. I didn't call my wife. I didn't call, my coach, like Coach Tank at Iowa State. I didn't call a bunch of people that probably would have liked to have known that decision. But I just knew it was the right thing, and haven't regretted it really at all. So,
well, which also tells you it was the right decision.
Yeah.
If it was 100% coming from your heart, right?
Yeah.
It's the right thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, what's your goal for your golf career now? Maybe whether it's yourself playing or whether it's your career with the Iowa PGA. Like, where do you want to see your career go?
Yeah. Well, I want to obviously keep getting better. Like, I feel like there's I feel like there's I'm still haven't got to the next level that I want to get to, and I'm working towards that currently. I had a really good year last year, and I've had success obviously since I've regained my amateur status. But personally, I still want to be the best golfer I could possibly be. And it's funny because now I feel like I actually am a better player than I was even when I was playing professional golf every day. So I do feel my goals are still to win. Like I want to, so I don't tell this to a lot of people, but like my goal really is to like win every event I play, and I didn't have that goal all the time when I was a pro, or I didn't have that goal all the time when I was in college. But it seemed like when I did go into an event believing that and wanting to do that, I tended to finish higher, or I ended up winning. And so it's funny. I think there is something to, if you say you want to make the cut, you might find yourself around the cut line a lot more. If you say you want to get a top 20, well, you might be struggling to get there, but you might be more around that top 20, top 30 range. And it's like, but I feel like for me, I want to try to win in any event I play. And I feel like that's why we play the game. And amateur golf was different that way. Like I don't play amateur golf to like finish top 20, and pro golf, it's a little different. Sometimes you're thinking, oh geez, if I make a cut, I cover my entry fee, I cover my expenses. And so that's what I should try to do. And you fall into those little traps as a pro that, I just want to make this much money so I can go pay for Q school or whatever.
This status on this event.
Exactly. And when you're not playing, like if the money wasn't there, I'd be like, well, geez, I want to go try to win this tournament because they don't give you anything for 20th. It's like I want to go win. And so that's kind of my mentality and my goals. I don't necessarily have, I do want to win a national championship, a USGA national championships, because I do want to have the ability to follow my dad and play in a Masters one day, if that's possible. But that's kind of, that stuff just kind of happens sometimes. It's hard to go out and just say I want to do that. But
so I'm sure you've met and seen a lot of like really cool things in golf, both from your career, from your dad's career, from kind of being in this golf world essentially your whole life.
Yeah.
Have you ever been starstruck by either a moment or a person?
There was at the Masters, actually. I remember my dad talking to Fred Couples on the range.
Oh, everybody's favorite.
And my dad had me come over and shake his hand and meet him. And to tell you the truth, like seeing that guy up close, I'm like, gosh, I would like, this guy is the man. Like, and hearing how he, just watching him, it's just, I mean, everybody loves Fred Couples, but I was very starstruck seeing Freddie up close. And then what made me like him so much more is that he actually asked me questions. Like, he wasn't like too big to like ask me a question. Right. And he literally legit listened, which was amazing. Because, that whole week you're meeting tons of different players, and you're the ones, there's certain guys that, are just like, they got other things in their mind. But Freddie, like, literally looked at you, listened to you, and wished you a great week, and was hoping that, he kind of said, like, if you need anything this week, please let me know, type thing. But it was, I literally felt like it was genuine. It wasn't fake. And I was like, that's pretty amazing.
It's just amazing how Fred's always the guy.
Yeah.
I mean, we're almost too young. Like, I'm a little older than you, so I remember like the prime Fred.
Yeah.
But like, you probably don't, maybe.
I mean, I've watched him. Yeah. I mean, he was
like
wasn't
early
young.
90s,
Yeah.
But it's still to this day, like, you talk to guys our age and even some younger, it's like, man, the Fred Couples thing.
Yeah.
And he won one major.
Yeah.
And he's still like this massive name.
Yeah.
And I guess Fowler, maybe if Fowler ever wins a major, I think Fowler has had a similar impact without the success, but Fred had way more wins than Ricky.
Yeah. There's something to be said about how you treat people, and I think those guys do a really good job of treating people well. I mean, Ricky's just known to be such like a great guy, and I remember at Big 12s, actually, my first experience with Ricky, he was. So his team actually went out to go. So we had a big lightning storm at Prairie Dunes in the middle of Kansas, and nobody. I think it started raining, so then they said, well, you guys can go back out, you just can't play. And, well, a bunch of our guys haven't never seen the golf course before, so we were going back out with our yardage books and umbrellas, and we were going to try to learn the golf course. And I remember Ricky was there in the pro shop with our coach and all of us, and my coach is like, Ricky, your team's out there, walking the course, aren't you going to go join them? And he's like, I don't think so, or something like that. He's like, I got a yardage book, and last time I checked, fairways and greens wins championships. But he said it, in a funny way. Yeah. But just a really nice guy. I've only interacted with him a couple times, but I know my dad's talked to him a couple times. I know there's some people I know that know him well, and he is just the way guys like that just you remember how you're treated, and there's certain players that. Right. There's a lot of them, not just those guys, but there are a lot of them that you remember because of how they treated you.
Yeah, I've said this before when I had Sam on the pod, because Sam, we advanced to the round before the U.S. Open, right? So we're playing over in Ohio after the Memorial, so it's all the pros are there. Ricky's there. And when Ricky came onto the range, right, everybody's on the range. And Ricky came on the range right next to Sam and I. Okay. And everybody to a guy was like, hey, what's up, Rick? What's up, Rick? Like, they all, like, it was obvious they were cool with Ricky. Yeah. And also the range kind of stopped when he showed up, even though he was just one of the guys.
Yeah.
And then there was a 4-hour rain delay that day. And similar to what the story you're telling, all the players and caddies are in one room in the clubhouse, right? Everybody's talking. But Ricky was the one who owned the room, right? When he was telling a story, the rest of the room shut up to listen to Ricky, and Sabatini was the loudest in the room, but Fowler was the one that like everybody really cared about. And it was clear that like the regular guys thought Ricky was a cool dude and one of them, and not above them.
Yeah. I think that's pretty neat. That's a neat story. I can definitely imagine that too. And I think. The guys that just have that little bit of ego, obviously golf's a selfish sport, and every type of personality is probably you're going to run across. But man, when you meet those real genuine guys that treat the game a certain way, and you really are playing the golf course. I mean, obviously you want to beat everybody and all that stuff, but it's nice to see. Kind of that old-fashioned,
right?
Like the Bobby Jones era. Obviously those guys were cutthroat too, but there was something to be said kind of what went on after they completed their round and how they treated each other and
yeah, I like that
friendships.
there's an element in golf, kind of like NASCAR, where if you go to a NASCAR event, there's so much access, and you can be hanging out in the pits and shaking hands with the drivers, like literally until they get in their car.
Yeah.
Because it's all about the sponsors. You got to take care of the fans. You got to take care of the sponsors, or else this doesn't exist.
Yeah.
That for sure existed in the golf world back in the pre-Tiger era, because like money was a lot tighter back then. But there's still elements of that in golf today, where the golfers really, really do take care of the guys behind the ropes, the sponsors, the fans, the kids.
Yep.
And that's really cool, where that is kind of gone from team sports. Like the NFL, the NBA, they do not care about the fans.
Yeah.
They really don't.
Yeah, no.
And it's really keep the fans as far away from us as possible.
Yeah.
Where these other sports, it's like, no, we need the fans.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it helps that a lot, for the most part, golf fans are pretty respectful people for the most part. Obviously, you see tournaments and there's you get the rowdy ones once in a while, but knowing that these are all people that, like, we're all playing the same sport. We're all able to play the same golf courses from the same tees and basically play the same equipment that they can play. So it's like we're all kind of, I mean, that's why I think the handicap system is so great, is because it's like it can allow everybody to kind of compete against each other on an equal basis. And yeah, I think it's pretty neat that we have that ability in golf to actually have those interactions with your fans. I'm not that now I'm a fan, right. So when I get to have those interactions, it's really pretty cool.
Final question, Nate. I'm a Fort Dodge guy. We tend to think that the Fort Dodge Country Club is a pretty good track. Now, I don't think you'll find anybody saying it's the best track in the state, but it's a nice course. I think that's one of these underdog. Not a lot of guys have played it. Where does the Fort Dodge Country Club rank as far as courses in the state of Iowa?
This is, I don't know if you saw, but so our association does annual awards everywhere. So Fort Dodge actually won 18-hole course of the year this year, or last year, 2022.
Like 40 times.
Yeah, and so it's obviously not going to be up there with like a Davenport or a Cedar Rapids Country Club, like those top 100 clubs in the country. But it's, for me personally, it's probably close to my top 10 because it's always in good shape. The greens are amazing. Like the greens I've never played the course where the greens haven't been perfect. And it's a course that people think on paper it's going to be pretty easy, but then you get it firm and fast.
The back nine.
And it's tough. And I think it would be, if it was here in Des Moines, that course would be packed like nonstop. And I think it would be a great club for juniors to grow up on, because you have to learn how to really play golf out there, because you're hitting tons of different straight drive wedges. You got to hit pretty straight drives. I mean, you think about 17, 18. You got some holes that are really tight. But you would really learn how to play golf well out at Fort Dodge Country Club.
That was the response I was looking for. So
yeah.
Thanks. I'll give you your $50 for that one.
Yeah, no, I have a lot of good things to say about it. That's
nice.
For sure.
Well, Nate, thanks so much for coming on the pod. It's great to kind of officially meet you. I think we've been in the same circle a couple of different times, so I appreciate you coming on the pod, and it's been fun to chat.
Oh, thank you. It's been fun. It's actually nice to rehash some of the old memories too. So I appreciate it. So it's been fun. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to our episode with Nate McCoy. After the interview, I was looking up Nate's career earnings on the Canadian Tour. So Nate played, according to the internet, 4 total seasons on the Canadian Tour. Now, obviously, this is not all-encompassing of his professional golf career. I'm sure there's some starts on the Corn Ferry Tour. There's a bunch of mini-tour events that he referenced on the podcast that he won probably $1,000 there, a couple $1,000 there, $500 there. But at least what you can find on the PGA Tour website and the Canadian Tour website, 4 seasons on the Canadian Tour. And if you look at it, Nate had a pretty good run. Like, he won an event like he talked about. He placed third. He got a lot of top 10s, a lot of top 25s. You'd expect some decent paydays for a professional golfer on a reputable tour like the Canadian Tour. Yet in 4 seasons on that tour, according to the internet, Nate's career earnings was $65,766. I know a lot. We've talked about on the podcast, like, how brutal minor league baseball pay can be. But man, even the lowest levels of minor league baseball make more than $65,000 in 4 separate seasons, which gives you a little bit of an idea of why Nate gave it up, wanted to start a family, wanted to, be the husband that he wants to be here in Iowa, and also probably why he wanted to regain his amateur status. So Nate today is, one of the top amateur golfers in the country because he is now back to being an amateur. He's no longer a professional golfer. And I don't mean to bring up his career earnings to denigrate what Nate did on the Canadian Tour. I just think it's good for people to really realize how tough it is if you're not on the PGA Tour. And even for a lot of PGA Tour players, how tough it is to just grind out that living week after week after week, playing a sport that can be very, very frustrating. So loved interviewing with Nate McCoy. What a guy. Really a great addition to the Iowa PGA here in the state. Hopefully I'm able to stay in touch with him. Thank you guys for listening, and have a great week, Moonlighters.
It's Moonlight Graham, yeah! It's a pretty good program, broadcasting to the heartland. Sports stories for the everyman. It's Moonlight Graham, yeah! Please follow us on Instagram. You're loving us on Twitter too. You download every pod we do. It's Moonlight Graham.